A great meme the other day from a person who I don't know. I only got friends with like everyone on social media, and I don't know how this person's friend, but we ended up friends, and that's like one out of I have 400 friends, and so this is like 4 out of 400 friends where I don't know why I'm their friend. They just live in the same state, so we became friends on Facebook. Despite the side note, hi Liz. Despite the side note, and there, I like the name. As I grow older, I notice names that I grew up with that I tend to like because the person who had the name first was nice. My neighbor Liz was like this blonde woman, and she always like let me into her house because her son and I were best friends, and we live right next door. But whenever she greeted me at the door, she'd have like this big smile, and she'd make like a big deal and get way too excited, and it was cheesy, but it was really funny. And so Liz would always say, "Austin," and it never got old. I'd go over there every freaking day. But what Liz in like the Facebook, my friend, she had a fire meme the other day, and it was a Sailor Moon, and it was just promoting that when you find a stick that like it's like super cool, and they showed this character Sailor Moon having like this really cool stick. I've been hitting sticks in woods since I was a little kid. I've been picking them up and just using them to hit trees with, so it's no surprise that I was attracted to them. This is a thing that people do, you know. Woodchucks chuck wood, beavers, they chomp logs. When it was natural, I just went into the woods and grabbed the stick and started breaking it on trees. Why not even pretend it's a sword? I think that's what I was trying to do the whole time. To address something, since the catchphrase, the bottom of the barrel. Actually, I was listening, side note, listening to the Monkees this morning, and no, this was not in the jungle. This was a band that were in the 60s, and I actually listened to them like when I was in middle school, and it was really interesting. And then I saw them in a music video, and they're like the same age that I am currently, and currently listening to them, they're like incredibly old because they were my age in the 60s, but you know, the same song that I understood it was familiar because I had listened to it previously was still that good, and that was really cool because I could understand because they were living inside the same country that I have been this whole time, and that was great. And then back to the bottom of the barrel. Oh yeah, to the monkeys in a barrel. You don't want to become monkeys in a barrel. That's like an old school game. It was a toy, but you could treat it as a game. That's the best part, when it's 2 in 1. And you don't want to become a monkey in a barrel at the bottom of the barrel and not understand that that's what you are until you reach the top of the rim and you can see over the horizon to have the best spectacle possible. The more you do hands-on work, you start to see how important it is to get your angles right on stuff where it comes to where the immovable object meets the unstoppable force. If your angles are off, it's just gonna break in the middle, no matter like what vehicle you use to meet that point A and point B, whichever they were. If point A was an unstoppable force and point B was, see, I talked about slang, it's not slang, it's accents, and I was asking if I had like an accent, and I sometimes have a city slicker accent, I sometimes have a country accent, I sometimes have a very city accent, and then sometimes I have a Spanish accent. And what I did just there was a Hispanic accent. And my last name is Sandoval, so that means that it's super Hispanic whenever I do that. But back to the unstoppable force, that could be point A or point B. And the immovable object, that could be point A or point B. However you meet the crossroads of the two, you are traversing that with an action, mainly being mobile in a vehicle. And that vehicle will break if it's not put together well when those point A and point B collide. And the most interesting part is that once again, point A and point B can be point B and point A because they're both infinities, so that It's just like a negative infinity and a positive infinity. It doesn't really matter if you're caught in between, you're gonna get taken either way to infinity. So when barrier spheres are important, and so the most illustrious thing that you could think is if it were like light, and you could have a barrier sphere of light and use it, because light is everywhere, and then it is always like really light because it just reflects and refracts. But if you're able to use that as something so strong as like an immovable object or an unstoppable force, it actually is an unstoppable force because it is everywhere all the time. It's a constant. But if light was a immovable object, it would be in the tune of a barrier sphere. And if you could put that on anything and use it as that is, it probably would be the best thing that you've ever had since sliced bread. And in order to enact that, I think that that's probably biblical, where God said, "Let there be light." And so the more that you understand a niche category of physics, mainly quantum mechanics and quantum electric dynamics. See, I just did the Hispanic thing again. Whenever I want to like abbreviate, I just quickly switch into a Hispanic accent, because I can say the word quicker if it's in a Hispanic accent, because they undercut the English nomenclature in order to not speak more of it. If things are like perforated as such, where like you just have across the land all these like spores, like if this was on a body, it would be a boil. And then all the nature sees like all the other nature having these across the land. And this is actually true because fungus, it like communicates across the land, almost like Wi-Fi or electricity. I know it's kind of hard to understand, but it's like a radio. You can turn on your radio anywhere, and it's actually just going to have that effect wherever you go. And then if all the land are seeing these ugly spores, it's just like boils on people. And what happened in the Black Plague, well, it was by rats, and they just had all these boils on everyone, and then everyone else got boils, just like the leaves on the trees. And so how to avert this is, well, at least the CDC and WHO have given us models so that we know how to understand the difference of the bottom of the barrel from the top of the heap. When this comes to the cream of the crop, you're just gonna have to decipher the middle, and where it comes to there's not enough and then you need a little bit more. Moving that is an Overton window, but at least the CDC and WHO have given us the degree to have numbers where we can say, for this amount of people who die, this amount of people should keep doing the thing that made them die before you start to question. And at least they're giving numbers of some sorts and able to do that at bare minimum. But what's better than bare minimum is to have the maximum capacity based off the basic constituent. Now this would entail getting down to fundamentals, and when you're doing that, you need an excitation. And there's different ways that you can do this. Fun mirrors, and having a rotation of symmetry from the fun mirror, so it's over accentuated. I saw this the other day on the internet. Someone put a piece of paper folded inside of a jar, and they actually were using it to show that it looked like a real head because the water was distorting it, much as the water in the jar could be that way as a funhouse mirror is curved, or just a window that is curved, because windows reflect. Wherewith what Nightwolf does is this one Indian, and I'm part Indian, so I recognize these things, is he takes his hand and he raises it up and a thunderbolt strikes down. I'm thinking he's probably only doing this if there's a cloud around, so he would be honing in any cloud if he has that ability, and so he could just raise his arm and have the lightning bolt strike down. I'm imagining honing in light. If I was making a barrier sphere of light, I would have to seclude a certain circumference, or mainly a perimeter in this case, would be about the square that I'm in. And notice that the square I'm in is only a set amount of light in it. But if I was Nightwolf honing in clouds, like making the clouds come towards yourself so that you could hold up your arm and make a lightning bolt strike in a person standing in front of you. Well, if I wanted to make like a barrier sphere of light to be all around, if you had that being the square one, I mean one square with all the light of one light. Perhaps all light isn't one light, and that's why it's able to be everywhere all the time. And I already knew that it was gonna be this bad if no one took action. The only reason I'm mentioning the WHO and the CDC and their piss poor reporting is that their numbers are so demented that I'm surprised they're even giving any. And the only reason and I already knew they would do that. The only reason I brought them up was because I just needed one crumb in order to turn their numbers into a world of pain that'll make them regret not doing better in the first place. What is true or not, you can see it shines through their cells if they're bad, or an inanimate object has that same manipulation. Or in a pond with a puddle, if they're saying something that doesn't make sense, it's like you throw a stone into it and it has no ripple effect because there is no impact in what they're portraying. That's almost like when they're judging witches to see if they floated or not. I guess the logic behind that was that there would be not floating because there would be too much like stuff in their soul that was dragging them down.